Hello, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at how to read the Fiore manuscripts. When I say read the manuscripts, I don't mean necessarily the text, although the text is important, you do need to read that. I'm more mean about how he illustrates the manuscript. Fiore created the manuscripts, or the manuscripts were created at the start of very early in the Italian Renaissance, so we've got effectively 1 foot in the medieval, 1 foot in the Renaissance, which you can see in his combat style. But what that means is that he's got quite a unique and a very clever way of illustrating the manuscripts, and we can use it to actually read them themselves. So even though the text is important and you would need to read it, it's not necessarily always necessary to understand what's going on. The first thing to talk about with reading manuscripts is this concept of a master. Fiore uses this throughout the manuscript, his masters, or kings, as you sometimes call them, we'll call them masters. And when he says master, it actually means, in modern terminology, we'd probably say expert. So you've got a master of this, you're an expert at doing that sort of thing. He illustrates a master very, very simply by putting a crown on the image. So if you ever see a crown on an image, you know it's a master, it's an expert about whatever he's trying to show you at that point in time. So that's easy. The fight itself, though, that he goes through 4 stages of a fight, and these are 4 levels of mastery, increasing in expertise. The normal expert fight, the normal master fight that he talks about is master of battle, and this he doesn't illustrate an awful lot. We'll go through the illustrations in a sec, but it's the majority of the manuscript is not master battle, but it does show master battle and it does describe master battle. And master battle will probably, at the end of the day, be about 90 to 95% of any normal fight. So this is what you would need to learn. So what I'm really saying is that 95% of the fight isn't really illustrated correctly or fully in the manuscripts. But master battle is your fighting positions, your angles of attack, your what we call colpi, and your voltas, your footwork, and the other martial elements that he puts in around that, to do with distance, to do with timing, to do with not holding back to you, with fighting from your hips and your legs. And Fiore cleverly illustrates this together, and this is called master battle. So the obvious one that a lot of people see are the posters. We've got unarmed posters, we've got dagger posters, we've got sword posters, we've got poleaxe posters, spear posters, we've got lots of posters, fighting positions. You lock these in your brain, you know your lines and angles of attack, you know your distance plays, you know your footwork, and you've got all the tools you need to actually be an expert fighter. That's master battle. What Fiore then goes on to, which is really the bulk of the manuscript, is how to counter somebody in a certain situation. And the idea here is that the master battle, say it was 2 Fiores or 2 expert fighters, the master battle is attacked, you've countered them, and you've got to an actual point where you can do a counter play. And this means you've gone on to the next level of mastery. So you've remedied their attack, or remedied their action. And this he calls master remedy, because you've done a remedy, you've done a contra to it, you've countered it. So the majority of the manuscript is actually master remedy, which is a 2nd stage action. And this is why sometimes people have this idea that Fiore is very reactive, because they see that the manuscript, the illustrations of the manuscript are always showing reactions to attacks. And it's not correct. The manuscript's actually showing the 10% of the fight where you would counter. Now, when he talks about master remedy, he's not talking about they're the only counters he has. What he's actually saying is this is a set of counters he can do from a certain position. They're a trigger point. And if you get to a trigger point, let's say, for example, a crossing with a sword, which is called an incrociata, depending upon the distance, there's a certain set of actions or plays that you can take from that place. Same with the dagger. If you stop somebody with your left hand, then there's a certain set of actions you can take. If you stop somebody with your right hand, there's a certain set of actions you can take, and so on. So these are really trigger points, and what I'm trying to do is get it into your muscle memory, so that you can just react from that point. The posters themselves also describe just straight, simple counters that can be done, things that can be done from their positions, from their actual fighting stages. But master remedy is really a next level, the next stage of fighting, where you've got a tool bag of things together. Now, what's interesting about master remedy, like with all masters, we see master remedy, he's got a crown. So we know he's a master straight away, we can see this in the manuscript. But then once he shows the remedy to a certain situation, the initial remedy, he then doesn't go on to keep illustrating all the actions you can take from there with a crown. He hands it over to his students, to his scholars, and they're shown with a garter, a golden garter around the knee. So when we get into the remedy master, the second stage fight, we've got the master with a crown, and then the follow-on plays, the follow-on actions all show the garter on the scholar, and they're winning that particular move. So if you ever open a manuscript at any particular point and you see somebody there with a garter on their knee, you know it's a remedy scholar. If you just look backwards, you'll find the remedy master, the one person that's there with a crown on. So how does a remedy master differ to a master battle master? Well, master battle always shown solo. You won't ever see the master standing there on their own because they're showing you how to fight. The master remedy is always shown in opposition against somebody. There's an action taking place because it's actually the second stage of a fight. Something's already happened. So that's how you follow that through. So what happens with the third stage of a fight, the next one along? If you can counter the counter, so the attacker, who is Master Battle, gets stopped by Master Remedy, who's going to do something nasty to them, but then the attacker, who was Master Battle, can counter that counter. This is called Master Contra. And with Master Contra, he shows it with a crown and a garter. So if we flip the manuscript open on any page, we can automatically see if it's got a crown and a garter, we know it's Master Contra. And we can look back and see which student, may necessarily, or which Master Remedy he was countering. So look back for somebody with a garter, or look back for somebody with a crown. Now this is maybe where we might need to actually read the text, because it often says things like, I'm countering the master who counted before, I'm countering the student that came before, the scholar that came before. This is where you need to flip maybe back to the text. So when you flip the manuscript open and just look at any play combination, any illustration, if you see somebody there on the run with a crown standing there, it's describing Master Battle, it's describing the basic expert fight. If you open it and you see two people actually engaged in some way, if one of them has a crown on, it's Master Remedy. If there's not one with a crown on, but one has a garter on, then it's a remedy student. It's still remedy. It's still that first counter. If you see in this engagement between two people, one's got a crown and a garter on, then that is Master Contra, which is a counter to a counter. So it's very easy to flip the manuscript open, turn to any page, and at one you can very quickly see who's winning, because they either have a crown on, a garter on, or a crown and garter on, and you can just, there you go, back, easy peasy. Just to complicate things a little bit, he does have a fourth stage of the fight, which he says rarely happens, and he says the fight will never go past 4 stages. The reason it never go past 4 stages is 1, 2, 3, 4. At that stage, everything's got a bit too messy, and you're going to disengage. He describes the 4th stage, and it's called a Master Contra Contrary. So that means the expert fighter's attacked, Master Battle, he's been countered, so that's Master Remedy. He's gone up to Master Contrary. The person who was Master Remedy has gone up to Master Contra Contrary, basically taking this stage up. So you've got attack, counter, counter the counter, counter the counter, the counter. But he says this is very rare, and in fact he only ever illustrates it twice in the manuscripts. There's only actually 2 Master Contra Contrary actions, and they're both in dagger. So out of what is a several hundred plays, several hundred combinations in there, it's only shown twice. To confuse it, he doesn't take any extra illustration on it, he just shows it with a crown and garter, so it's the same as Master Contra, but it does exist in there. But the principle's still the same. So if you open up a manuscript, flip to any particular page or folio in the manuscript, if you see somebody with a crown on its own, it's Master Battle. If you see somebody with a crown engage with somebody, it's Master Remedy, start of a set of actions. If you see somebody with a garter, then it is one of the students of Master Remedy, so it's one of that set of actions. If you see somebody with a crown and garter, they're countering that Master Remedy. And it's that easy. Now, if you're not understanding what the actual action is showing, because it makes it a lot easier when you can actually see who's winning in a move, in a combination, which isn't always that obvious in an illustration. But if you're confused, look back. Say, for example, it was somebody there with a garter. You can look back to the master. It might make it more obvious about what's coming next. It's a follow-on action. Or read the text. Might be one stage where you might actually start to read the text itself. So that's a quick overview of how to figure out who's doing what inside a manuscript. Another time we'll go through a bit more about what is actually illustrated in the manuscript itself. But don't be confused, and also don't think that Fiore is a reactive fighter. Is anything but. Is actually an aggressive fighter, not reactive. It's just that most illustrations are showing that second stage. Okay, thanks very much.